Okay, thank you, and good afternoon. I'm Kevin Trustum from Lismore City Council, as you were just introduced to me. My presentation today is on our experience with glass recycling. We commenced that journey in 2014, and I'll give a brief rundown on how we do it, what we do, and what we've learnt in that process. Okay, so at Lismore City Council we have a business unit called Northern Rivers Waste, and it's about a $16 million business, the turnover each year. We have our MuRF, our composting facility, our second-hand shop. What else do we do? Lots of things. And we do our own curbside collection for household and commercial collections as well. So the beauty about our system is we control the entire recycling system in Lismore from the curbside right through to market at the end. It is complex. We have lots of staff. But at the same time, it gives us an edge in being able to control what we do. In 2014, we opened our materials recovery facility, termed and coined as our MuRF, so giving the community some ownership over that facility. It cost us $3.65 million in 2014 and included a glass processing plant as part of the MuRF itself, and that was worth about $500,000 in its own right. As I said, because we had control over the system, the MuRF was really interesting in that we could control what people were putting in their bins and allowed people to put different things in their bins. So we allowed plastic bags, polystyrene, different types of electronics. We have satchels, resource recovery satchels that are like post-pack satchels that residents could put their mobile phones and batteries and printer cartridges and x-rays. All those little hard to recycle things could go in those, and we'd pick them out in the MuRF as well. So it enabled us to really, revolutionise recycling in Lismore, and the community really embraced that. Enabled us to also, as I said, do glass, which I'll move on to more comprehensively in a second, and that's a picture of the plant, but I'll explain that a bit more as we go. As I said, we really changed the way we recycled in Lismore. We had a program called the Recycling Revolution, which we introduced at the same time, we had an education program around these 12 rules called the Dirty Dozen, recycling glass, turning glass into roads was part of that, and you can see those. So given the issue with China sort at the moment, we are actually reviewing our 12 rules because some things we aren't necessarily viable to do anymore, but we are really still committed to recycling what we can and getting the best solution for our community. So moving on to glass recycling, as I said, in giving a bit of background, before we built our own MuRF, we used to transport all our recycling in mixed loads to MuRFs in Queensland, and we were finding, obviously that took a lot of transport, a lot of carbon miles, and a lot of fuel in getting that material up there because you couldn't compact it very much, had to go loose and light so they could process it. We were finding the issue with glass was that, and the feedback from Visy was about 80% of the glass we used to send to them used to end up as landfill because by the time it got there it was broken, it was mixed. They used to like to recycle whole bottles, so if it was broken in the process, because it did get loaded a couple of times into the garbage trucks and into the bulk trucks, it was a really big issue, and our community and the council thought, well, I wonder if there's a better way of doing that. At that time we were toying about building our own MuRF, and obviously glass was a part of that system, and we really looked at what we could do. We bought in a crusher, which you see. We had that at our quarry. We crushed some bottles down to see what it was like, what it might look like. And as you know with glass recycling, there's definitely limitations around mixing glass, the different colours in glass, whether it's crushed or not. And whether it's contaminated with things like crockery and window glass. So I guess the beauty about our system, which I'll move on to in a minute, was you could actually take any glass product and put it through to make glass sand out of. Okay, and as I said, we weren't one of the first council to crush glass. It's been happening quite a lot in Australia and overseas, but it's definitely something that really has suited our community. Okay, so this is an example of the product that we produce. They're a covered glass sand, so it's pretty much like normal sand. When you touch it, it's not sharp. It does have a little odour from time to time from the sugars, the juice and the alcohol that's in it. But I'll talk about that as a separate issue in a minute. A lot of people are worried about if they touch it, they're going to get cut. It's going to cut their hands, but it's definitely not like that. And the technology we used at the time really helped with that. So moving on to the plant itself, we used at the time used an imploder technology, a crystalline system, where we used 2 imploders to basically it froze the glass back on the glass in a crushing system, and that's what helps round the glass particles off so it's not sharp as well. We keep moving through. It had a variety of screens as well to obviously remove the labels and the caps. One issue we had was that where glass is pulled out in our MuRF, which is fairly early on in the glass breaker screen, if there's any fine bits of paper, like shredded paper, hole punch paper, business cards, anything the size that was a business card or less, would actually fall through the screen and end up in our broken down glass, which you can see that's what comes out in this screen. It was actually a problematic issue for us, and I'll talk about that in a minute a bit further when I talk about our issues. Further screening, we had a vibrating sieve screen that used to separate the particles down to different sizes, but that was challenging in itself because it used to clog up because it was basically like fly mesh, and if anything was a bit wet, it used to bind. So we actually went away from that and invested another $150,000 in a new screening system that sits in that place. We were producing 2 sizes originally, a minus 2.46 mil and then a 2.46 to 4.75 mil fraction in the first instance. But over time, we transitioned to just producing a 4.75 mil minus sand, so it was all together, and that was the best product that we found, and that's what was transported to our quarry for further use. So moving on to how we use the glass. Obviously, there's rules around how you can use crushed glass due to the EPA exemptions and obviously resource recovery orders, and then also the rules with our roads and maritime services about using it in roads as well. So we could use it for pipe bedding and drainage, road base, and then further products if you could wash them in the future, such as asphalt and concrete. The issue with putting in road base and even asphalt and concrete in its own right is that there's only small percentages you can use, up to 2 to 3% generally. So the actual volume you can put in to get rid of is quite limiting. So using it for pipe bedding, drainage and backfilling is definitely the significant advantage. But overall, the biggest advantage is that you're not having to mine virgin resources, and if glass has to be landfilled, you're actually saving landfill space at the same time. Back in 2015, Council laid its first road with road base that included crushed glass. As I said, it had a blend of up to around 3% crushed glass. And the feedback from the roads guys was they really enjoyed laying it. Actually has held up, and even today it does have a seal over the top, but the road base underneath is really has a high level of structural integrity, and so it was quite enthusiastic. It was quite nice to have the waste section working with our road section and engineering section to have that work. About 1,400 tonnes of glass in the first few months of processing went to the quarry, and has been slowly used in Council's road building program. Okay, so moving on to the challenges. Safety was our biggest one. As with all new things we do, the first thing that we came across when we started looking at glass crushing and introducing this system was the safety concerns around our staff. All you need is one staff member that is quite alarmist around the health impacts of glass. There's heaps on the internet, which he found everything on the internet you could, around the difference between, about silicosis and crystalline and amorphous silica. So we had to bring in the experts to really prove that what we were doing wasn't going to hurt them. So I'm not sure, I'll give a brief rundown. Once sand is heat treated, it becomes amorphous silica, which isn't carcinogenic. The only issue you really have is around basically as a nuisance dust. So it can irritate your lungs if you don't wear normal dust masks, and if you're not wearing PP like gloves, it can irritate your skin as well. And given the noise of our glass crushing plant, we had to obviously look at hearing protection, and we had to put in some sound walls as well. But it was quite a long process. It nearly took 2 years to resolve the health concerns. And it wasn't just our own staff on site that were doing the processing and working in the MuRF. It was actually the council staff who were going to be using the product as well, out in the roads and in the sewer pipelines. That were the main people that were concerned about the use of the product. In the end, when it was all proven to be okay, our general manager basically gave the staff a directive that council decided to do this. If you don't support it, find somewhere else to go. So, which was good. The next swag of challenges was our technology. So I did talk to you about the technology we use, which was the imploder system. We found that, I guess, with any plant and a new plant, there was a whole range of issues. So one was obviously as I mentioned before, the fine materials that was getting through to the glass, which was paper, caps, plastics. That meant that it actually was really made it really hard for the system to screen out the glass because there was so much other crap in the glass to be screened and crushed down. And then if a council bought us material to our MuRF that might have been a bit wet, they might have stored it outside. We used to bind the screens and really make screening inefficient. So that was one issue. Another issue was that the plant itself, because of the way it worked, and glass is so abrasive, the system was so, I guess, it takes a lot to crush down glass. So there used to be lots of vibration problems. We had cracks developing in the screening plants, in the imploders. The walls of the plant would actually just basically wear away. We had to put wear plates in all the time. So there were significant issues around that and the constant repairs. As I said, wet materials was a big issue. And then every time the system failed, we used to stockpile the glass. So in the end, it kept leading to us having a stockpile. And we found that every time we fixed something in the system, it would actually, the problem would move somewhere else and would have another problem to fix. As I mentioned, we had a stockpile. So at the time, we weren't obviously proud of our stockpile that we were creating, which lots of people wouldn't when they talk about glass. But as part of our story, it's fairly important because now as I talk in a second, we have found solutions. So we found, the stockpile is really important. We wanted to keep the glass out of landfill. We knew that we could find a solution. Our current crushing plant wasn't working very well for us, so we kept looking at that space. Another challenge was compliance. Obviously, there's the resource recovery exemptions and the order for glass sand, where we had to set up glass sampling procedures to make sure we actually met the rules. So that included taking samples of the material every so many thousand tonnes, not just looking at the chemical analysis, but also to do characterisation surveys as well every couple of years. We'd had to develop compliance certificates, so when we sold the product to a customer, we basically gave a declaration that it met the order and that it was safe for them to use. We developed all those systems ourselves. The EPA did come and check on us at one point to make sure we're doing the right thing, and they gave us a tick of approval, which was quite good. Okay, overcoming the challenges. So we had a bit of a restructure in our section at council, and we went from looking at glass as a recycling issue to more of a quarry production issue. So because we were producing a sand, we have been looking at campaign crushing using quarrying material, quarrying equipment. So I just got some quick videos of what's in the back. Just cut that. Okay, so the success was our product. As I said, we've found a huge market in the pipe being industry. Around Lismore. We're lucky that council's got lots of sewer projects on the go at the moment and that we we have been finding a home to use that product. We've worked with Southern Cross University to do trials in integrating glass sand into concrete. Initial trials are suggesting that the concrete actually performs 40% stronger than normal cement using normal sand. So there's still quite a large amount of work happening in that space. As I mentioned, this is a contamination, so it's a pile of the stuff that comes out the end. So we have to send that to landfill. But in our MuRF, it would always be classed as a contamination fraction and go to landfill anyway. I guess in the future, something like that could have value as a fuel for a waste energy facility. In 2017, Council won an award from the Civil Contractors Federation for using glass sand around one of its pump stations as a sustainability initiative, so it was really, really good as well. So my last slide around, or second last one on what we've learned, is getting across the testing and sampling procedures and making sure you have your self-checks, that you're meeting all the rules around what we do, having your staff on board early, selling the benefits and dispelling the myths, using others in the organisation to help with your solutions, so engaging your engineers and your design teams to make sure that they want to use your product, having good operating and safety protocols in place to ensure that there's safety and integrity around your product, and ensuring that your executive, so it was important our executive actually helped sell the story to the staff. So from now on, we're still continuing to look and exploring gaining approvals for additional uses, particularly concrete. Concrete isn't in the resource recovery exemption, but the EPA is more than happy to grant exemptions if you can produce the information to prove that it works okay. We're looking at the viability in washing our sand. As I said before, it does smell a little bit. For us to use it in asphalt and in RMS roads, it has to, as road-based and RMS roads, it has to be washed to be clean. And also for concrete, you need to wash it as well because the sugars will stop the concrete from setting. So we're looking at that. Looking at more trials with the universities and actually trials in the marketplace. We're particularly around precast concrete. Asphalt partnerships, so we've leased some land at our quarry to a new asphalt plant. So we're looking at working with those guys to integrate glass sand into asphalt production and pushing other markets. So I guess our biggest market for us we see is actually selling product back to the councils that bring us commingled recyclables for processing, and getting those councils to close the loop in their community on the product that they are sending us. Cool, thank you.